If you're in a lost and lonely place, I've been there. These are lessons that I've learned, and hopefully by me telling and being vulnerable about them, it's able to get you out of the pit, out of the loneliness place as well. So continue to watch. We're going to attack them right now. Welcome back to the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. I'm your host, Rickey Jasper. Today is going to be a fun one. I always say it's going to be a fun one because I think that they're just packed with a lot of good information, a lot of vulnerable, a lot of real information. So today's episode is about if you're feeling lost and lonely. I've been there. We're going to go through 4 ways of how to get you out of that feeling. So I'll high level them as I usually do. Number 1, understand that the feeling is normal, especially nowadays, and we'll get into that more. Number 2, you got to put the phone down. You think it's connecting, but we'll talk about that more. Number 3, explore. And then number 4, find a routine. Being lost and lonely today, now, is so much easier than it has been in decades and in years, because you can be on your phone and you can be staring at your phone and thinking that you're connected to everybody else, but in reality, you can just stay in a dark room by yourself and you've really only kind of had not necessarily deep connections. You've connected to a lot of people, but not really truly genuinely connected to them. A few reasons for why you might feel lonely, and if this applies to you, then hey, then this episode is really going to help you out. All of these have applied to me. Number 1, identity crisis. Not really knowing who you are, not really knowing what your place is in life, always feeling like you have to be someone else, do something different to be accepted. Those are identity crises. Number 2, lack of a social connection and lack of a meaningful social connection. We're all connected socially. If you're watching this podcast, there's a level of you connecting to me socially, but the lack of meaningful social connection, as in if you're sick and you're in the hospital, people are calling and checking up on you. Typically, if I'm sick and I'm in the hospital, there's going to be people who haven't heard from me for a few days and they're going to be checking up on me. I've been sick and in the hospital, and the only people who've checked up on me because they hadn't heard from me was my family. And it was also because I was shying myself away from socially connecting even with my closest friends. I just wasn't, continuing to establish and to nurture those relationships. Number 3, career pressures. You might be in a career, but because you're not as long as you want, you feel lost. You feel like, what is my lot in life? What am I supposed to be doing? Number 4, relationship challenges. Whether you're in a relationship, you can feel lonely in a relationship, or you are seeking a relationship and it just hasn't happened for you yet. So you just don't feel good. You feel lost. And number 5, mental health issues. Mental health issues can be isolating because you feel like you're the only person who's dealing with it. You feel like you don't know how to connect with people. And there's a lot of just different varying levels of mental health issues that could be blocking you from connecting with people, right? So we're going to talk about some of the ways to get out of those things. Again, any sort of medical, clinical thing. I'm not a medical, clinical, certified person. So I'm talking very vulnerably from my experiences and things that have helped me, because that's what we do here on this podcast. So we're going to get into it. So our tips and tricks segment is tangible tips that if you listen to, if you apply, if you do them, they will move the needle and dial forward in your life. Now, I always preface it with this. These are not quick fixes. They're not just going to be something where, hey, you do one time, you feel great. I don't like content like that. I don't think that it's super necessary to my life, because anything that's been helpful and applicable and lasting has taken time to do and has just taken a level of consistency. So number 1, understand that the feeling is normal. I say that because when we're feeling lonely and we're feeling isolated, we feel like we're the only person going through this. And then you start to see everybody who has connection, or who you think has connection, when you're walking around, when you're in the grocery store, when you're walking around your neighborhood, when you're at your gym, and you see people who are having communication with other people, or, when you are going and grabbing a bite to eat, or going and, ordering takeout like I would do. I would order takeout and I would see people having friends around. I felt like everybody was having connection and I was the only person who was left out. A little quick story. So when I lived in San Diego, I used to live in one of the areas that I lived in out of the 3 places, I guess, that I lived in San Diego. One was a studio apartment and it was downtown. And I remember the first year that I lived there was a St. Patty's Day, like day party, all that stuff around going on. And it looked so much fun. And before I moved to San Diego, all of my friends lived in Arlington, DC. I lived in Arlington. So like we would go out, we would have a good time together. There was connection. We had so many memories. And I had been in San Diego for, I think that was like my 2nd or 3rd year there. And I remember being like, I have no one to call to even go out with and or no one's calling my phone to go out and just have a good time with. And I felt like I was legitimately the only one. And the reality was there's probably so many people who felt like that as well. So understanding that the feeling is normal makes you feel less like an alien, makes you feel like, okay, this is normal. And also that there's a phase of life. Like this phase of life might feel a little bit lonely. This phase of life might feel a little bit isolated, but feeling this phase is a good thing, because then I knew right then, next year, St. Patty's Day came around. And again, it might sound cheesy, but I was like, next year, I want to have friends that I can just go out with, or that I can just go grab a drink with, or I could go grab some food with. And it didn't have to be, at this big party or whatever, but around that time, I wanted to make sure I had friends. And it gave me a benchmark, and it made me look at areas that I needed to improve, at areas and walls that I needed to bring down, and at actions I needed to take to get out there more to make meaningful connection. The other thing too is like, it can be normal because your values might have shifted, right? So when we go into our different phases of life, we want different things. I remember, from that kind of St. Patty's Day thing, even if I had friends who really wanted to go out then, they probably wouldn't be super close friends, not because I don't enjoy going out. That's what they did consistently. I'm like, well, that's not me. So I'd started to meet friends in San Diego from the gym and so on and so forth. And that was their thing. So it was like, okay, they're not my core circle. Every now and then for community, I might meet up with them, but they weren't like my best friends because my values had shifted. So I could have community, but it wouldn't be in a way in which I wanted to. So understanding that your values might have shifted. And when your values shift, you might be isolating. We all go through this period where, I won't say we all, but a lot of people in the US who've had a level of college experience or, after high school experience, you go from always going out, partying, having a good time, and then your career hits, and then you're like, well, I'm not doing that stuff anymore. And then you're looking for a relationship and a partner. So anybody who's doing those same things, you naturally are isolated because you don't want to do those same things. You can find community doing what you were consistently doing in the past, or just knowing that you're a little bit isolated because you're doing something different. Number 2, put down the phone. It's very easy to get wrapped up on a doom scroll on TikTok, on Instagram, now on YouTube Shorts, where time just passes and it's just aimlessly, or in an area where I do this sometimes. If I have some downtime and I feel a little stressed, like I'll hop on my phone and I'll just be going to different apps. I don't know what I'm looking for, but the reality is what I'm looking for is just a dopamine spike to make me feel good. And then just like, okay, now get in a scrolling pattern. And so when you do that, you stay isolated because you're not in the present moment. You have no meaningful connection. If you are using your phone and you are in an area where you're like, I need this to establish connection, right? I'm trying to date, but I live in the suburbs and I live in a house on my own, or I live in an area where it's not my demographic of people and whatever it is, then use it as a tool to create meaningful connection, to reach out to people, to establish relationships. When I say put the phone down, what I really mean is don't doom scroll as much, because I have done it and I've been in areas where I've done it where all that I was doing was scrolling through social media, watching not great content on the internet, all this stuff, and it just dulled me down. It made me feel more isolated. It made me feel more lonely. It didn't help me at all. It didn't make me feel better. And I think that sometimes that's like the thing that we think is, when we feel, a little bit lonely, well, let's just go to this thing to distract us. But sometimes we look at it and we're like, man, now we feel even worse and we feel even lower. And what do? It's like, well, we just keep doing more of it because we think that it's going to be better. Where the hard thing is, okay, let's use this tool to establish meaningful connection. That could be DMing somebody that is in your area to meet up with, to catch a workout with, to have a conversation with, to establish a friendship. That might be hopping on, some of the dating apps, being like, hey, I'm shooting my shot. I want to put myself out there so I can meet some new people, so I can go on some more meaningful dates, so I can do some things and put myself around people. And it might be uncomfortable. This is the thing too. When I was not reaching out to people and not having friends in San Diego and stuff like that, like a part of it was because I knew that it would be uncomfortable, because it's just like relationships. Your first relationship typically isn't the person that you're just like, I'm married to. Now, for some people, it works out. But the reality is, for most people, it's not the first relationship that's the end all be all. So you have to go through some rejectionary periods. You have to go through some periods where it's like, this just feels a little bit awkward and like this just doesn't click. And it might be friendship, might be relationally. But when you do that, when you get yourself at bats, and this is, I always say at bats, but get yourself out there, it helps you. So instead of taking all your time and just endlessly scrolling and looking and comparing and doing all this stuff that's going to make you feel more lonely, take the at bat to feel uncomfortable, to get yourself out there, to meet different people, to do different things, to put yourself in uncomfortable positions that you know in the long run are going to benefit you. Number 3, and this kind of ties into number 2, is explore new hobbies, self-exploration, travel, volunteer, explore. Get out there and do things. The one thing that I've learned about living across the country in San Diego and now about being, in Texas, and even though, I am engaged here, is exploring and doing new things builds connection and builds not just personal connection, but like self-connection as to what you enjoy doing. Lost and lonely, there are people who don't feel lonely being on their own because they feel fulfilled. They do things that they enjoy. They have hobbies. They have things that provide them fulfillment. And if you realize that a feeling of loneliness isn't just about people, it could be about things that you're doing or things that you're not doing, you're going to have a level of exploration. Anytime that I felt lonely, sometimes I felt lonely and I've had friends. I've been in relationships where I felt lonely, and it's because, I felt lonely because I haven't had a connection like with myself. I wasn't doing the things that fueled me. I wasn't doing the things that fulfilled me. I was still having those bad habits. I was still just, in a career to make some money, but when my day to day, it just didn't feel good. So I could, be in a relationship, but everything else throughout my day made me feel like I'm not exploring. I'm not doing things that I love. Look, I'll just keep it a buck. Like, we really do live in a world where people have full relationships, marriages, and stuff like that, and feel lonely. The divorce rate is 50%. Now, it's 50% because there's a lot of different reasons. I think financial might be at the top. The other thing is, there's a lot of people who feel lonely in their relationship. And it doesn't mean that their partner's a bad person. It doesn't mean that, it doesn't mean anything is wrong with it. But anytime that's happened for me, I've realized that there's a disconnect with me. The times when Carly and I are connecting the most and we feel that the greatest connection is actually when we are the most connected with ourselves and our purpose and the things that we love to do. Give an example. In times where I haven't been doing something that I love. I love speaking and I love creating and I love podcasting. In times where I'm like not doing that and I have no plan to, and I'm not doing any sort of planning on this, and this kind of happened at the tail end of, before we moved from San Diego, I have been my worst self, right? Because things are going great career-wise and things are going great relationally, but because I'm not doing anything that I feel is genuinely connected to my purpose, every day I'm going around feeling antsy. I have this like angstiness. I'm kind of edgy or whatever. So I'm not showing up well for my relationship. And I had great friends and everything, but because I wasn't my best self, it affected the relationship, right? So self-exploration and doing things that make you feel good. When you feel good, you operate better in important areas of your life. I love fitness now. Look, we go on vacations. I got to get up and get a workout in. Not every day, but I know that I'm like, hey, if we're going on a vacation for 5 days, 2 to 3 of these days, I got to get up and I got to get a hard workout in, because it doesn't make me feel good to just like be completely off and just be completely lazy and whatever. I actually don't feel good. I feel good saying I'm going to dedicate an hour of my day and have the other 23 hours to rest, to sleep, to relax, to enjoy. But I need an hour to myself so I can show up and be the best and actually, enjoy this relaxation, right? So self-exploration is another thing that is going to help you not feel lonely. And to kind of tie that relationship thing back up and also to urge you, if you're in a relationship and you haven't found your thing, or you feel like your partner hasn't found their thing and you're like, oh man, there might be a disconnect, have those difficult conversations. Hey, what makes you happy? What genuinely fulfills you for you? And if it's something that it's like, oh man, I really wish I could do more of this, then figure out a way to allow the space to do that. I love smoking meats and making, meals and stuff on the smoker. Last night I just cooked chili, or I guess yesterday, for like 10 hours on the smoker. And it was such a great thing because I started the process in the morning. It ended at 8 p.m. and it's in the fridge now, to eat today. But it was like this nice, enjoyable thing that I was able to do throughout my Friday, throughout my workday, that I was so happy to do, that I enjoyed doing, that I'm like, I had this lightness to me yesterday and it made me better because I'm like, I'm doing something I love. Okay, I love everybody. I love the house. I love, my fiance, I love the dogs. I just had this lightness of everything and it had nothing to do with the other people and other beings, the dogs and stuff that were around me. It had something to do with, I am doing this thing that I love doing, that I've explored and found since I've been here in Texas, that I love, and I feel good. Every time I finish these podcasts up, I feel great when I go through the rest of my day because I'm like, I've done something that I love. And when I feel fulfilled and I've had that self-exploration of doing something that I really enjoy, then I'm better and I don't feel lonely. And even if I hung out with myself the rest of the day, I feel good because I've done something. So explore. Number 4, find a routine. Now, when you're lonely, it's very easy to just sit and kind of do nothing or to lament and everything. Find a routine. And this is going to tie into number 3. When you find a routine, add into it that exploration thing. If you feel lonely, literally write a list of your day. And if none of your day says talk to one new person or try one new thing or do a thing that I enjoy, then it's going to be tough for you to get out of that feeling. The routines that I really focus on, one, fitness. Fitness before, when I was in my early 20s, was like how to look the best and whatever. Yes, I want to look good. I'm not sitting here lying and saying like, oh no, I want to. But then it was all for the vanity of it. Now it's for, I want to be able to have the most energy. I want to perform the best. I want to be an example to, God willing, our future kids. I want to be an example to other people who watch my content and say, man, is he just a speaking head or talking head? And then they see other content like, oh no, he really does this. And it gives them inspiration to go do something, to get out there and do something. Second thing I focus on is my mental health, right? I'll couple mental and spiritual together, second and third. So every morning, Monday through Fridays, I do my morning devotional. So I read my devotion, I do some meditation, and then I write my prayers in my prayer journal. So I probably have 3-4 years worth of prayer journals on average 4 days a week, because some days I have early meetings and it just don't get to the prayer journal. But that's something that I do for my mental and emotional health. What it does is it just connects me to God, and it can connect you to whatever you believe in. And so for me, it helps ground me, it helps calm me down, it helps me realize that, hey, everything's going to be okay. And it gives me some purpose. It gives me the reality is it gives me a good feeling that, hey, there's other things that are more important in life than just sitting and grinding every day, right? And so it allows me to feel more connected. Number 4 is have a financial routine. I say this because it's easy to spend money on vices and stuff to get away from feeling lonely, right? Like a lot of people, I would say myself, I got to a point where I was like, I feel good, but I was like, spending too much on Amazon, just buying stuff. Have a financial routine and have it tied to something where, hey, you want to do it's a bigger purpose thing in your life. And so for myself and Carly, like we were like, okay, when we were locking into, hey, we want to buy this house, it was like, okay, a few months, cool. Let's tighten the budget a little bit. And so what it did was it got me inspired. It made me start to feel good. Hey, there's something to strive for. When I started to strive for something, I started to feel inspired. When I saw the thing that I was striving for, a house, I was like, oh man, now I can, make sure we have an office, and I want to have my podcasting space and stuff. And I started to feel this new level of inspiration because it all started from, hey, putting the money into a right area because I want to do something different with my life. And when I do something different with my life, it's going to open up some other doors that I want to step into, right? So those are the 4 things in which I find a routine in that I can lock into on a daily basis and say, okay, if I'm in my routine, I'm hitting this routine 80-90% of the time, I'm going in a right direction. And so realizing that is a me thing. And so again, lost and lonely does not just mean a connection. You got to be around people, because a lot of people can be alone in a crowd. It's a connection to self as well. 4 things, again, to recap, to make sure that you are finding connection, that you don't feel so lost. Number 1, understand that the feeling is normal. We're human. We are not above anything. We're not above tragic things happening or anything like that. So, a lot of bad things can happen, and being lonely is a part of the human experience in life. And if you realize that it's normal, and if you realize that it's just a phase of life that you're in and that you can get out of it, that it's normal. It just takes the pain off of it a little bit. Number 2, put the phone down. Now, keep the phone up for meaningful connection. Put the phone down for doom scrolling. And I'm going to consistently say that because it doesn't make us feel better as people. I don't know anybody who's gone into a doom scroll and said, man, I feel like the quality of my life and the connections that I've had with people are better. Hey, I had a quick dopamine hit, but if you do that on a consistent basis over time, you kind of start to feel dull, and you definitely don't connect with people. Number 3, explore new habits, hobbies, volunteer, travel, explore new self-disciplines that you can have. When you explore, you realize that loneliness isn't just about you connecting with other people. It's about connecting with yourself. There's people out there who are just by themselves and they feel so fulfilled because they've connected with their purpose. They've connected with the things that they enjoy doing. And that when you do that, when you do find a community of other people, you don't need the connection to fuel your loneliness or lack thereof. You have the connection because you're like, oh, this adds value to my life. That gets into a deeper thing. Like, you don't want to just keep people around you, just keep around you to distract yourself from lonely. You want to be fulfilled in yourself, and then have people come around. You're like, I feel fulfilled. And this is a great crowd to be around as well, or however you carve out your community. Number 4, find a routine. As humans, like, we can condition ourselves to be in routines, and it feels really, really good. But I also say find a routine, not just around, just around your work or anything like that. Find a routine around, your energy levels, your fitness levels. That helps you feel good. When you feel good, you show up well in other areas of your life, your mental and spiritual, connecting to something greater. Like, I don't believe that, like, we're just going through life and this is purposeless and that when we die, that's it, right? Like, I do my best to connect with God every single day and be like, try to have my mind open. Hey, what do you have for me today? Who can I serve today? What do I need to do today to be a better man? What areas that are challenging that are going to hit that I need some grace for? I guess the other thing with that is also some financial disciplines as well in setting your routine, because when you do that and you're putting your money to an area that you find beneficial, you might find new inspiration. If I put my money here, then this opportunity opens up and I can do this. And then all of a sudden there can be some other exploration things that you feel connected to that can connect you to other people that you really want to be connected to. So I hope that these help. Now, our word of the day or our word of the week, whenever you hear it, however you want to apply it, is connect. And the reason why it's connect is because you're connected to 2 things: connecting to other people and connecting to yourself. Loneliness isn't just about other people. It's about overall connection. And I will say it's connecting to the man upstairs, connecting to not just a social media scroll. I genuinely think it's so easy to think that, our only connection piece is a doom scroll. But in reality, it's like, no, we have to connect with ourselves. We have to put the phone down. Hey, with all this time without scrolling, what are we going to connect to? What are we going to do? You figure that out. Oh, okay, well, what are the people I want to connect to? Oh, figure that out. Okay, do I want to have a connection with God or whatever? Oh, okay, figure that out. There's connection that we can have that doesn't have to be digital. And if you think of how are you connecting with other people that isn't just digital, it might change up your viewpoint. So I hope that this message helped. Thank you all so much for watching. Please give it a like, comment, a share, engage with me. I would love to engage with you back. If this message helped you, again, share it to somebody else. We are going to consistently try to get this message out there. We love talking about this stuff, and we just want to get better together. So I will see you next time. Peace. Thank you all so much for watching the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. If you like this podcast, please like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell, send it to friends, use a carrier pigeon, do whatever you have to do. We hope that this inspires you to chase your greater vision in your life and for us to continually and consistently do it together.